Hello. Good December's evening to you. Wes Waddell. I have the great pleasure of being the Associate Director of Bushwick Northwest, the parent nonprofit for the Bushwick Book Club Seattle, and Style Songwriting through Youth Literature Education. Bushwick exists to deliver literature, music, and songwriting to the Seattle community while building the next generation of musicians and readers. We're delighted to be here at Hugo House on December 10th for INKALOUD. Oh, good loud, yes. 3 authors, 9 musicians, 1 night, a second annual event as INKALOUD. This was previously a collaboration with Hugo House, and before that, Seattle 7 Writers. This is the one time in the season where we curate a show with local authors and have them come be part of it and watch original music inspired by their work happen after readings. A physical description of me. I am an early 40s skinny white guy who began experimenting with facial hair during the pandemic. I am wearing a shirt that was given to me by executive director of Bushwick, Jeff Larson. Yeah. Jeff says he outgrew it. I don't know if that was social or physical. Bushwick Northwest recognizes that our organization is headquartered and our events take place on the unceded land of the Duwamish and Coast Salish people. We honor with gratitude the land itself and its first people, past and present. Yeah, it's worth that. Tonight, we are hearing original music inspired by Molly Wizenberg's The Fixed Stars. All right. Joy Has a Sound, Black Sonic Visions, edited by Elisheba Johnson and Rachel Kessler. And Sasha LaPointe's Red Paint, the ancestral autobiography of a Coast Salish punk. They are all here. We will hear from all of them, and we will hear original music from Alex Guy, the Go Janes, Marielle and Chrissy Littlefield, Shaun Crawford, Reggie Garrett, Ranj Goodman, Sondra Segundo, and Drea Marilyn. Give them all a round of applause. The show will happen in ooh. I feel like I just got more profound. The show will happen in 2 acts. There will be an intermission. There will not be a quiz tonight. Aw, thank you for that. There are just too many other moving parts to go through tonight. This particular lineup came together because Bushwick asked Shin Yu Pai to suggest some authors that would fit not only with what's really relevant in all sorts of ways in town right now, but also we're trying a thing this season. It's our full spectrum season where all of our Mainstage titles have colors in them. So we got the red paint and Orangette, and you see what we did? We did a lot of neat things here. And working with Shin Yu is just a joy. You want to feel seen as an artist, as an arts administrator. Invite Shin Yu to something and then ask her about it. It's just her ability to understand and connect is extraordinary. And I'd love to invite Shin Yu up to say a few words about these picks. Shin Yu Pai is a Seattle-based writer and the author of 11 books, most recently the 2021 poetry collection Virga, which got the Bushwick treatment in a special event this past October. It was super fun and good tunes. She is the recipient of awards from the City of Seattle's Office of Arts and Culture, For Culture, and the Awesome Foundation, is a 2022 Artist Trust Fellow and was shortlisted in 2014 for a Stranger Genius Award in Literature. From 2015 to 2017, Shin Yu served as the Poet Laureate for the City of Redmond. She is the writer, host, and producer of The Blue Suit, a podcast for KUOW Shorts, which launched in July 2022, and her Haiku Comics project. Yep, yes, you heard that right. With artist Justin Ruff, are forthcoming from Blue Cactus Press and Issues Press. Please welcome a true asset to the city's literary scene and a great friend of Bushwick, Shin Yu Pai.
I want to thank Jeff Larson and Wes Waddell for inviting me to guest curate tonight's program. for this year's INKALOUD showcase, I chose 2 memoirs by local authors and a special anthology that includes poetry, visual text, and a wide variety of writing. The Fixed Stars is Molly Wizenberg's memoir about growing a marriage and a sexual identity and evolving from a writer who had a 9-year foray as a restaurateur back to being a writer to become a more complex version of herself. Her book illuminates the possibilities that can be present to us when we are curious and courageous enough to draw a new map and reach beyond what we thought we knew. Joy Has a Sound, Black Sonic Visions is edited by Elisheba Johnson and Rachel Kessler, 2 of the 4 co-founders of Wanawari, a center for Black arts and culture in Seattle's Central District. I was excited by the range of innovation and writing in this collection and the work of so many Black artists who have often been asked to respond to the work of others, but are now elevated in their own right. I felt it would be fitting to invite Bushwick musicians to respond to contributors from Joy Has a Sound, to celebrate and center the creative and intellectual contributions that Black artists bring to larger cultural conversations. Finally, poet Sasha LaPointe's recent memoir, Red Paint, the ancestral autobiography of a Coast Salish punk, reflects on the role of punk music on her development as an artist who reaches across many genres and forms. Sasha's deep connection to music made her book a natural choice for tonight's showcase. Wes is going to kick off the show by introducing the first author and musicians.
Keep that going for Shin Yu Pai. And me trying my 3rd microphone of the night before we've heard a single song. All right. So this is what's going to happen. We're going to, book by book, we're going to invite the author up to offer any remarks and a short reading, and then we will hear songs inspired by that work while the musicians sit there and sweat, knowing the author is staring right at them, maybe even has their phone out. I love this show so much for that. Original music inspired by the written word. Art, continuing a conversation with art is what we're all about here, and I'm really excited to really begin INKALOUD 2022 in earnest. Molly Wizenberg is a writer, reader, and teacher who in a previous lifetime co-founded the award-winning Seattle restaurants Delancey and Essex. She teaches workshops on memoir and personal narrative, both online and all over the U.S. when we can gather, and provides mentorship and individual coaching to nonfiction writers of all experience levels. Prior to publishing the bestsellers Delancey and Homemade Life, which Bushwick featured on its Mainstage in 2014, and Molly was gracious enough to participate in the quiz, she gained a following through her Orangette blog, which won a James Beard Foundation Award in 2015. She has written for Bon Appetit, The Washington Post, and Saveur, and co-hosts the food and comedy podcast Spilled Milk. Tonight, we hear from her 2020 memoir, The Fixed Stars, which Bustle called a touching look at modern love and life. Molly Wizenberg.
It is a total pleasure to be back here, and I think that this is my first time reading with a live audience from this book because it came out in the summer of 2020. So I did a lot of Zooming, but it's really good to get to read live from this book. So yeah, I can't believe this is the first time. Anyway, fun. So this book is the story of something that happened to me starting in the summer of 2015. I got a juror summons and was assigned to a jury at one of the courthouses in downtown Seattle, and I wound up developing a really wicked and ultimately quite destructive crush on a female defense attorney. It was a very unusual jury duty experience. Anyway, and this was very inconvenient because at the time I had been married for about 10 years to my husband at the time, and had a 3-year-old daughter, and just it's never convenient when life changes a lot, but it was really inconvenient and really terrifying to me, and required that I change everything. So the book opens with that jury duty experience, And so this, I'm going to read you a couple pages from right after the jury duty situation is over, when I'm trying to go back to life as I knew it, and kind of will it away. It was a habit now, looking for her. I looked for her on street corners, in the driver's seats of cars as I pulled up alongside. I searched online, cleared my browser history every day, each time swearing I was done. I was a story I had already heard, even tiring to myself. I could make this go away. Like the welt of a mosquito bite, this itch could only get worse with scratching. Anyway, the internet gave me little. She kept a low profile. I knew almost nothing about her. The more I thought about her, the more stupid I felt. Wanting her contradicted everything about my life, everything and everyone to whom I'd bound myself, and I did not even know her. She was an invention, a pencil sketch from a fever dream that I now pored over for hours, days, weeks. I colored her in with fantasies and fabrications. I made her up. That fall, I enrolled in a fiction writing class. It was actually here at Hugo House. That fall, I enrolled in a fiction writing class. The first assignment was to read a Xeroxed short story whose plot unfolded around a dinner table. To warm up when we arrived for class, the instructor asked us to write for 10 minutes about a fantasy meal. I knew immediately where I would go. I went to her house. I found her in a wool sweater at the kitchen table, peeling an apple with a paring knife. The fruit's skin curled onto the table in a single spooling coil. "I'm making pancakes," she said. "Thought I might cook some apples in butter." When I sat down across from her, our knees knocked like gloved knuckles. That was as far as I got before time was up. I didn't volunteer to read my story aloud. My hands were sweating. I don't even like fruit with my pancakes, I thought. It was a relief. The instructor gave us a handout on character development. "Your characters will have competing desires," she said. "That's where stories come from. What your character wants, her internal desires, must conflict with her external reality. Interview your character," she said, and I wrote it on the back of the handout. Ask her what she wants. To forget about her, that was what I wanted. We had learned in elementary school that a star's gravity keeps its planets in orbit. But planets too have gravity, and as they orbit their star, they tug it back and forth, making the star wobble gently. Our Earth does this to the sun, though weakly. Jupiter, which is bulkier, gives the sun a pretty good yank. The wobbling of stars is what allows astronomers to discover and locate planets outside of our solar system, planets that orbit other stars. As faraway planets tug their stars to and fro, the light from those stars changes color. As a star moves closer to us, the light waves it emits compress and look blue. As a star swings away, the light waves stretch, looking redder. A shift in the light of a star points to the presence of an orbiting planet. She exerted this type of gravity on me, a disorienting pull. I wobbled. I didn't want to. I wanted to stop. I knew where I was supposed to be, my location inside the constellation of my family. I had to quit thinking about her. There's this trick in meditation. When you catch your mind drifting into thoughts, you silently say, "Thinking." Gentle, easy, no judgment. You recommit. If I quit thinking about her, my internal desires would align with my external reality. If I could quit thinking about her, everything could be like it was before. Thank you.
Molly Wizenberg. That's so much more interesting than the time I was on a jury. I mean, the case that we got was a little bit steamy, but the people were as boring as I was. Let's get to some music. Violinist, violist, singer, and composer Alex Guy is the leader and principal songwriter of Led to Sea, a magnetic trio that fuses classical pop and experimental music. Alex has also composed extensively for dance, film, and theater, and has performed and collaborated with many notable composers, improvisers, and musicians in the Pacific Northwest and beyond, including Angel Olsen, Thou and the Get Down, Stay Down, Wayne Horowitz, Mira, Sarah Cahoon, Jarek Bischoff, Aham Oluwo, and Laura Veers. Those are some good names. She's joined Bushwick on stage for original music inspired by Another Country, Dune, When Stars Are Scattered, Girl in a Band, How Music Works, All the Light We Cannot See. You've done a bunch. This is good. Daughters of the Air, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Here Poems for the Planet, and maybe some others. Smiley emoji. I copied and pasted from your email. Please welcome Alex Guy.
I love that Wes really reads a bio with a lot of inflection and enthusiasm. It's very sweet. So I had the privilege of reading Molly's book, and I found so much to relate to in it. I first read it like I was having insomnia, and I read it all in one go, in the course of a night, and then I came back to it and read it again. And when I came out in high school in the early 90s, pre-internet, and there was very little information. I had no information. I was I think I know this about myself, but everything else was completely unknown. And I had a lot of questions, am I always going to be alone? Am I ever going to find love? Am I ever going to kiss somebody? And do I have to play rugby and softball? And I was up for it. I mean, I like sports. I like sporting. So when I was reading this book, I was regardless of what time in your life you question something that you thought you knew, a lot of questions come up and there's a lot of unknowns. And I think it takes courage to explore that question in any context, and to take the leap, to explore and to let it lead you to a place that might actually fundamentally restructure your life. And it especially takes courage when you have a lot at stake. And in this case, in the story, Molly has a lot at stake, a family, a child. And so I think that takes a special kind of courage to be willing to explore the question. And in the book, we can read to the end and we know what happens as the result of that exploration. But she didn't know at the time. And I wanted to really stay in that moment of the tension of taking the leap and having no idea where it will lead. And I wrote the song on viola, and I have to admit that the viola tends to predispose you to writing very depressing songs. So, but there was a lot of joy and humor in the book, which I loved. And but I just want to acknowledge it's not my fault. This instrument will take you to the depths of your dark soul. So anyway, here's the song, and thanks so much for having me here. It's really an honor. I always love working with Bushwick. So. know how I'll know if it's alright or if it's time. I wanna fight if there's a sign. I watch constellations grow, sometimes content with what I know. Two lies in my mind is alright, or is it time? Our skin too tight, we spin, we turn, then we face the same. We follow lines that twist and burn, but we remain, and it's alright when we fight. Or is it time? Is it time? Is it time? Which story is mine? Scorched earth I leave behind, stars that refuse to light a path for me. Which story is mine? Stars that refuse to light, scorched earth I leave behind.
Which story do which story do I choose? Which story do which story do which story do I choose? Which story do which story do which story do I choose? Which story do which story do which story do I choose?
Thanks.
Alex Guy. All right. You can catch Alex playing with Sarah Cahoon at Washington Hall on December 16th. Alex arranged about 15 of Sarah's songs for strings, and we'll be playing them live with a string trio. That will be really fun. We would right now be bringing Brittany Danielle up for her Bushwick debut as a first-timer, but we learned this afternoon that Brittany is not feeling well, and in the 2020s, that means we don't do our gigs. But I responded, when I learned this, I reached out and asked if there was anything that Brittany would like me to read about the inspiration and the song to share tonight, because the song does exist, and Brittany has promised she will record it this week and send it to you, Molly. All right? I mean, let's get Brittany feeling better first. But she put in the work, and we want to represent her here. Brittany said, reading The Fixed Stars felt in many ways like someone was narrating the feelings I've had while I learned more about my authentic self versus who I envisioned myself to be. There is a fissure that happens when the person you've constructed over the years, whether it's based on what others saw or who you thought you should be, comes face to face with the person you are. There's a time of blossoming out of the shell you've built, wanting to grow, move forward, and break free while also being homesick for what you had before. I wrote the song called If I. Sorry to miss you all. Looking forward to more Bushwick. So, get well, Brittany. So that means we move now to the Go Janes. The Go Janes are Arnie Adler, Patrice O'Neill, and Kathleen Tracy, and they have just completed their first CD. Woohoo! Thanks to a whole lot of painted rocks and generations via GoFundMe. The Go Janes formed just before the pandemic began and had a few months to write and perform before everything shut down. The trio kept writing, though, and came out on the other end with a completed CD and enough music to fill another. They funded themselves by painting rocks and selling them at concerts. Rocks are heavy. They thought it would be a temporary excursion, but are finding the rocks may be with them forever. And with the new CD, they are looking forward to giving fans something more than just rocks to take home. Oh, you guys are growing. That's good. They have joined Bushwick in the past for original music inspired by White Teeth and the Count of Monte Cristo. Please welcome the Go Janes.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, Alex, the same moment and the same phenomenon in Molly's book also struck me. That moment when you realize that something is sort of a private and exhilarating fantasy is actually a geologic event that is intruded and is rippling through your life. So I had a painful piece of history around this. So Molly, your book was rather triggering for me, and it led me into writing this song, which was actually very healing and cathartic, so thank you for that. So these events that just like with the stars, it's like these geologic things that have that same quality that are kind of embedded in these emergence of identity, and it's inexorable. It's a process that you can't really turn away from as much as you might want to. it's a little bit like the Titanic approaching the iceberg looming out of the dark. And that moment of realization is what inspired this song called Iceberg.
Keep it go Janing for the Go Janes. Arnie Adler, Kathleen Tracy, Patrice O'Neill. Yeah. All right. Now, we all know, we're all here at Hugo House. We know that words matter. We know words are important. So first thing to note is that Titanic is a verb. We all just learned that from the song. But the other thing is, I apparently need to go into some of my artist communication emails because the Go Janes and the whole tagline for tonight was, 3 authors, 9 musicians, 1 incredible night. They thought I was asking them to write 3 songs, and they did. Each one of them did. So I don't know if it was rock, paper, scissors or exactly how Kathleen's song won, but you should ask them about that. You should also ask them about the new CD. And if you want the lyrics to that song, some of the performers have provided those, and that is available at the digital program that we have at bit.ly/ink22-pgm. There's a slide that we usually put up that says all of that, and we will sometime later in the show. But Jeff is working hard here. This is Jeff Larson, Executive Director, founder of the Bushwick Book Club, Seattle. At the digital program, you can also find links to all of the artists. You can learn how to support them, how to buy their music, where they're playing, all sorts of things like that. Moving on to Joy Has a Sound. Before co-founding Wanawari in 2019, Elisheba Johnson served as public art manager for the Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, a Bushwick supporter, and founded and operated Fair Gallery and Cafe. She is a conceptual artist heavily influenced by the Fluxus movement and the accessibility of art experiences and objects, and sees art providing the frame for discussing and solving our complex and important civic problems. She's a member of Americans for the Arts Emerging Leaders Network Advisory Council and has won 4 Americans for the Arts Public Art Year in Review awards for her work. Yeah, that's worth a couple of woos. Can we get some from this side? Okay, good. Rachel Kessler is a writer, cartoonist, multidisciplinary collaborator, and educator who explores landscape and community. As a mother of young children with limited resources, she experimented with boundary-breaking performance art and video, co-founding interactive poetry collaborations Typing Explosion and Vis-a-Vis Society. Currently, she works on a community cartography project called Profanity Hill, a tour of Yesler Way. Together, Johnson and Kessler edited Wanawari's Joy Has a Sound, Black Sonic Visions, an anthology of black art, poetry, prose, scores, scripts, and silences. Please give a very warm Bushwick and Hugo House welcome for Elisheba Johnson and Rachel Kessler.
Our accessibility needs is that we need more time. Okay, I think I was supposed to start. I'm Elisheba Johnson. That's Rachel Kessler. So we're 2 of the co-founders of, 4 co-founders of Wanawari. Wanawari is a black arts center in Seattle Central District where we use arts and culture to fight the displacement of black people from Seattle's central area. We do that using arts and culture, music, dance, story, oral histories, memory, anything you could think of, gardening, community meals. But really we came into existence because there was an immediate need to save the home of one of our founders, Inye Wikoma's grandparents' home. So we rent the most important thing we do is invisible, which is we rent the house at market rate and give it back to the black community as an arts and cultural center. So what does it mean to use arts and culture as that financial transaction that keeps black families and keeps black homes? And so when we were thinking about what this project could be, it was really Inye actually who talked about, as somebody who was born and raised in the Central District, who had to put on scuba gear to be able to exist in his own neighborhood. And he talked about being in the neighborhood on the weekends and you would hear music and the lawnmower and these people talking on the porch, and now there's just silence, right? Because as other people move in, as white folks move into black neighborhoods, they ask people to assimilate to them, they don't assimilate to the neighborhood. And so we wanted to really think about cross-genre, what it would mean for black artists to really take up space about what sound looks like for them. You want to add? You should add some stuff.
Okay. Well, I just want to add that you all should buy this book. There's 15 black artists, writers, musicians, people from all over the world, and local folks, and just sort of responding to this idea of the sound of joy and making sound and making noise. And I wish we could just read you everything. And some of it you can't, it's not even to read. Some of it is like to look at. Like this is Chon Diop's sort of, I don't know how we do call this, like spiritual notation that then leads into drumming in his community. There's like a photo essay. There's beautiful poetry, and yeah, it's an amazing book. And I don't know, how did this come up? I'm trying to think of the origins of it. There's an introduction where we talk a lot in it.
Yeah.
We could read a little bit of.
She was going to
read some of that.
read some of it.
I don't know, but I feel like you said it too.
I know I did. So, yeah, we were invited to create a work with Third Thing Press. And if you ever heard of Third Thing Press, it's out of Olympia, and it's really run by Anne DeMarkin, and she's really a powerful, incredible person in the literary field and believes in publishing local stories. And so everything is a cohort model. So we were brought into a cohort model, and she trusted us to be able to come up with this idea and create something that was really unique to us. So I think that's our origin story, and maybe we'll get to.
Yeah, we're just so excited to hear, because like part of this is that like we invited in musicians, people who usually work in music, then to like transcribe, not just like with musical notation, but different ways that sound interacts. And so we're like doing this sort of multi-sensory activity about sound and about how there's even if sound is silenced in a historically black neighborhood, that the land remembers that there's layers and layers of that history that still sings out. And we're just really grateful to all the artists that contributed to this book, and please, yeah, check it out. And we're really looking forward to the music that comes out of this, so thank you.
Yay. Thank you for including us.
Okay.
Because I have enough time to sit down and live stream from the Wanawari account.
Yes.
I'll talk as long as you need. And y'all can help cover it by, let's hear a little more applause for Elisheba Johnson and Rachel Kessler. There are a few of the artists who are featured in Joy Has a Sound have performed on the Bushwick stage before for past offerings of original music inspired by books, and we thought a lot about whether we wanted to invite them to do this or not, and we decided we wanted to keep that conversation going and find even more voices to draw inspiration from their offerings. And so we didn't call you for a very intentional reason, but we love you. Thank you so much. How we doing? Okay, good. At home, how we doing? I got to wait 20 seconds and then see if we get some thumbs and some hearts. But so excited to bring up Marielle Littlefield and her father, Chris C.D. Littlefield. Marielle is a first-timer. Chris is very, very active in a million things, including style songwriting through youth literature education, Bushwick's educational nonprofit going into schools and talking about storytelling and reading and inspiration and creativity. And if you happened to watch Macklemore's performance on top of Pike Market last year, you saw this man playing horn. Next to the fish. So we've got one first-timer and one veteran, and we're going to get original music inspired by Joy Has a Sound underway. Again, from Marielle and Chris C.D. Littlefield.
Okay, now oh, wait, is it on? Is this thing on? Is this thing on? I just figured I'd say a couple words. Joy has a sound. It really, I could just stop right there and then we're done. You know. Anyway, I'll say this so much about this tremendous work of art, collection of artists, and Just a fantastic body of work and a collaboration and curation, ideas, a wealth of inspiration. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know where to end with this book. So I just did a cross-section and borrowed a bunch of ideas from just about everything from cover to cover to craft some lyrics and take the opportunity to do a performance with my youngest daughter, who's about to sing for you. Who sings like a bird. She sings so beautiful, don't you agree? Anyway, I made a track. We threw this thing together in the matter of hours. No, a few days, but I'm pleased as punch and happy and honored to be doing this with my youngest daughter, and hopefully you enjoy it. My youngest daughter, Marielle, Littlefield. She sings so beautiful, don't you agree? Thank y'all so much. Joy has the sound.
Marielle and Chris C.D. Littlefield. Hey, Jeff, real quick before you come up, put that digital program slide up if people want to learn more about how they can find out what CD's doing next or any of our performers tonight. There it is, bit.ly/ink22-pgm. It's short, but it's not even that simple. But Fawn is saying nobody's had a better 2 years than the QR code, so just feel free to point your phone right up there and go for it. Next up, with original music inspired by Joy Has a Sound, is another first-timer, Shaun Crawford. Can we get a big piece of noise for him? Yes. Shaun Crawford, born in Dallas, Texas, Shaun Crawford has been touring since he was 19. He moved to Seattle in 2018. He has one of my favorite Instagram usernames, Jangle Reinhard. It's a good one. Let's welcome Shaun Crawford.
Quiet as hell. What's going on? Like y'all don't know each other or something. God damn. Shh. I liked it better when you were quiet. Good evening. How are y'all doing today? As you could tell, I literally got out of bed just to get to play in this show. So I'd apologize if I gave a care at this point, because they're paying me to play these songs, not to look good, and I'm tired of putting all that work into just, oh my God, you look so great today. But shh. Thank you. But I'll be honest, whenever I was told about the Bushwick Book Club, I was really excited because I was like, oh wow, this is great. It's been a while since I've actually read anything outside of memes and manga online, so I got to feel like an adult again. But reading this book, there was a passage that popped out at me, and not even just a passage, just a sentence, and it goes a little something like, I felt the weight of everything that had happened there. I think it was like page 63, and it was encompassing like the feeling of, I guess, two pictures that I was looking at. I forget what the pictures were, but they were kind of dark and desolate, and I started thinking about last time I had felt that. And as you heard, I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, and I just got back there from Thanksgiving, and a lot of those feelings of, feeling everything that you went through, going back through, the buses you used to take to high school, all the times you got your ass beat before basketball practice, after band camp, before shows, after shows, just all the BS you went through. So it's a little bit of that, and then just like the general, feeling of, are you making people proud that, fought for you to get to this point, not just my parents, not just my grandparents, but, those before them. So this song is kind of like admitting that I might not be living up to that expectation, but also a question of, do I really need to at this point? So I hope y'all enjoy. Y'all sure it's not too loud, right? Felt all the moments my elders raised this world. Well, only the night would solve our troubles. No matter the times, no matter the blood or toil, they moved on, not knowing what lay ahead of them. But when that feeling's gone, I'm not sure. I'm living the life they worked so hard for. Am I the vision they once saw? Or another soul that's too far gone? I felt the lights on the first train to the station. Tried my best to raise my head. I saw the signs and all the cries I let out in them. Tried to think about all the times I fled. And then the feeling's gone, I'm not sure. I do so fast, life for. Is it this vision they once saw? Or another soul that's too far gone? I've got the feeling I'm not sure. that they wouldn't want me to come back home. I've got a feeling I'm not sure that I'd be welcome here back home.
Shaun Crawford. Welcome to the Bushwick Book Club, Seattle. If you like that sound, which should be everyone in here, Shaun's got an interview with the Explore Washington podcast and Acid Tongue coming up at Numos on January 19th. Put that on the calendar. If you want more details, look him up online. All sorts of links there at our digital program. And I would like to invite up to the stage right now Bushwick's membership director, Melissa Montalto.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name's Melissa. I just wanted to take a quick minute and let you all know about our sustaining membership. We have some members here in the audience tonight. And being a sustaining member, you help Bushwick to do many things, including continuing our programming and offering these shows where we bring together music and literature, and also to help compensate our artists fairly. And so I ask you to consider becoming a member. We have many different levels. It's very easy to sign up. You just come to our website. We have a QR code out there if you're interested. Membership levels start at $5 and up per month. And for all of our educators, if you work in schools, if you're a librarian, your membership is free. And then we offer discounted tickets, priority seating for those hot shows. And also we do member parties. So we just had a member, artist, and staff party before the show tonight where we get to know each other and share some beverages and snacks. So thank you so much for considering. And please come talk to me if you have any questions at the break. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. We have one more song before we take that break, and you have an opportunity to refill whatever it is you need filled and visit the merch table, the membership table, buy a copy of Joy Has a Sound. This is Reggie Garrett. Reggie has been on the Bushwick stage many times for many, many different books.
You and read them all?
We don't have time, Reggie. There's a rumor that there's a new record coming out. Can you confirm or deny this?
It's out.
It's out. I'm very excited about that. Reggie Garrett.
Drumsandwiresrecordings.com. Wes is going to join me for this thing. When I was asked to do this, I got the book and read it, and it's kind of interesting. You know, Joy Has a Sound. As I read it, it sort of took me back. A lot of people don't know, in my previous lifetime, I was an artist. And, went to art school, got a bachelor's in art, went to grad school as an artist, an art major, studied a lot. And in those days, I read a lot about art. And the funny thing was I read this book, and all of a sudden, it was sort of like a sinkhole quicksand that pulled me right back into that world, reading artists' statements and manifestos and conceptual art and all these ideas. And I sort of swam around in that for a while, thinking about which one of these things am I going to write a song about. And a lot of them were really interesting, but I kept going back to the title, Joy Has a Sound, and I kept going back to the introduction that talked about sound and noise and the sounds of life in a community. And what I thought was, in our house, that was music. For my family, it was music. And the thing that, whenever I do one of these things, it's always hard to figure out how to get started, what to hang it on, what to tag it on. But the thing that struck me was, it was actually kind of funny. There was one poem where the ending had something to do with the world coming to an end, the universe dying, when a black woman says no. And I thought, if you grew up with a black mother, you heard no all the time. And all of a sudden, I remembered a moment when my grandmother told me no, when I wanted to not go to choir practice that day. And she said, ain't no way. And what was funny about that was, I loved Aretha Franklin. So you know how little kids, when adults say these things, and as a child, you are very legalistic and concrete. And you hear that. And I laughed. I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, I thought about all the instances of music in our family. When we were little kids, my father worked late. He'd come home, and if you were lucky enough to be awake when he got home, you'd come downstairs, and if he was in a good mood, he'd let you stay. And he'd make himself sort of a treat meal, and he'd play his jazz records, and you'd kind of sit with him like late at night when you weren't supposed to be there. And it was just this wonderful thing. I remembered when I really got into songs that I wanted to know, and my mother would sit with me in front of the stereo, and she'd have a pad and piece of pencil and piece of paper, and we'd listen to songs, and she'd help me figure out the lyrics to all the songs, like back and forth over and over again until we got the whole thing so I could learn it and sing it. And I remember doing harmonies with my sisters, because we would sing together, and we'd do the harmonies on records, and if they didn't have it, we'd make up our own. We just sang all the time. So those are kind of all the things that went on in this song. Oh, and when I asked Wes to do this thing with me, I sent him the wrong copy. I tried in different keys, and the one I sent him was a half step higher than the one I decided on. So we're about to embark on a great adventure. Well, I'm half asleep in the nighttime gloom. Moon shadows paint the room. Well, I drift away as time rolls on, caught in sleep's silent song. Then I'm wide awake at midnight. Whispered music out of sight. Oh, and all the ways a child can know. Oh, every little thing's gonna be all right. Songs of laughter, songs of tears, songs you sang to me through the years. Are those songs still live in me? Yes, those songs still live in me. Well, sit by the console, down on the floor. So many records to explore. Well, we'd piece out every word one by one, and we'll stay until that job is done. Then sing harmonies in the heat of the day, with sisters' voices overlaid. Well, can I stay home from church today? Well, Grandma says it ain't no way. Songs of laughter, songs of tears, songs you sang to me through the years. Will those songs still live in me? Yes, those songs still live in me. Oh, won't you take my hand and help me find the key? Oh, let's sing together and we'll always be in harmony. Well, all alone in the spotlight, no family here tonight. And even though they're nowhere in sight, well, I still feel those harmonies inside. Songs of laughter, songs of tears, songs you sang to me through the years. Well, those songs still live in me. Yes, those songs still live in me. Well, those songs still live in me. Well, I can hear you singing me.
That's Reggie Garrett. All right, we're going to take an intermission, visit the bar, visit the merch table, the membership table, and then we'll be right back with some original music inspired by Sasha LaPointe's Red Paint. All right. While we're making our way back into the room here, or those of you at home, oh, thank you. Those of you at home are making your way back in front of your screen. Next time during intermission, you might consider the Bushwick Show crossword. Every one of these, you thought we couldn't add any more words to this, but every show, there's another one of those QR codes. Every show, there's a brand new original crossword created by Amy Zoe, themed on the title or the theme here. I did this one. It's a pretty inky theme, which is super fun. You can find that at bit.ly/ink22-crossword. We do that for every show. Can we get a big round of applause for everything that's already happened tonight in the room? And maybe just outside of the room. Thank you for those of you who joined as members. I heard that number is greater than 0, which is fantastic. We got some more words and a few more songs for you. So let's keep it rolling. Sasha LaPointe, is from the Upper Skagit and Nooksack Indian tribe. Her work draws inspiration from her coastal heritage as well as her life in the city, and she writes with a focus on trauma and resilience. With self-described obsessions revolving around Twin Peaks, the Seattle music scene, and Coast Salish salmon ceremonies, Sasha explores her own truth of indigenous identity in the Coast Salish territory. LaPointe's work has appeared in Hunger Mountain, the Rumpus Literary Journal, Indian Country Today, Luna Luna Magazine, the Yellow Medicine Review, the Portland Review, and more, and a collection of poetry called Rose Quartz will be published by Milkweed in the spring of 2023. Her memoir, Red Paint, the ancestral autobiography of a Coast Salish punk, was published by Counterpoint Press in March of 2022. That's very recent. And Bushwick is delighted to feature it as part of this year's INKALOUD event. Please welcome Sasha LaPointe.
Twal Gualapu de Ishan, Estralchu, Ceiab, Ciayaya, Takshablu, Seedsta, Twal Nooksack, Skagit. Hello, welcome. My name is Sasha Takshablu LaPointe. I am from the Nooksack and Upper Skagit Indian tribes, and it is an honor to be here with you all. So thank you to the Bushwick Book Club, to Shin Yu for inviting me, and to the readers. Like, this has been so incredible and kind of emotional. Like, of course, music and poetry, music and writing is always like, I'm like, wow, I'm having a lot of feelings. And thank you to my friend Marguerite, who accompanied me here. Marguerite makes several appearances in Red Paint, one of which is towards the end, and I will forever be grateful for the moment you made me laugh at a baby when I needed to laugh, and you were like, look at that, that's silly. And I was like, thank you, Marguerite. You just made me laugh for the first time in a long time, so I'm forever grateful for you. I thought about what to read tonight in regards to thinking about music is such a through line in Red Paint, and there are so many moments of disempowerment throughout this story, but I feel like it's okay to get through them because I know what's on the other side. I know that there's an other side. Specifically around music, though, like being in the wrong relationship, being in the wrong marriage, being kind of with these like very gatekeepy, cis white punk dudes who were like, you can't play music. And I was like, what? Yes, I can. But I thought I would share a chapter that is towards the middle of the book, or middle towards the end, about being on tour with my ex-husband and how horrible that was. But also, no shade, but also how I think that going through some of these moments of disempowerment helped me realize that I could step out of it. So maybe it's kind of a bummer, but bear with me. So this is from the chapter called Breath, and it's about being on tour in Europe with a punk band. Leaving my body wasn't unknown to me. I had learned to disassociate when I was 10 as a defense tactic. It wasn't an ability I was consciously aware of. It would just sort of happen. A fog would cloud my brain, and I'd slip down into myself to someplace safe. It was as involuntary as breathing. It was reflex. But when the strange phenomenon came back into my life as an adult, I wasn't really prepared. It had been a little over a year since the Australian tour. Brandon and I had been trying to move past it, but I grew colder as the months went by. I sank deep down into myself. I drove up north more frequently. I rekindled a relationship with my 14-year-old self, convinced that if I could tap into the past, I could save myself from drowning in memory in the present. I retraced her steps, returning again and again to the trailer. Things only got worse. Brandon tried to reassure me. I'm here, he kept telling me. You've got to move past this. So I tried. He was also trying to regain my trust, trying to right the wrong of abandonment. He presented me with a trip to Ireland. His band was going on tour again in Europe, and this time he tried to choose me as much as he could. He chose both, convinced he could balance a trip with me and his tour, starting the trip together in Dublin, and eventually meeting up with the band. I agreed to go to Ireland with him, believing that if we could recreate the fantasy of rainy nights next to a fire and crashing ocean waves, we could have a chance. The first time I fainted, I was walking across the parking lot outside a market in Dublin. I collapsed onto the concrete and Brandon rushed to me, bringing me to my feet and offering me my inhaler. I took 2 puffs. My body quaked with tremors, like the medication somehow aggravated my condition rather than helped my breath return. Back in the hotel that night, I curled my body along the window as Brandon slept. I looked down at the city below, still bustling with the drunken noises of nightlife. We decided the attack was a result of my asthma, that perhaps the travel had been a trigger. I looked at my plastic inhaler, then back to the lively streets of Dublin, unconvinced the small plastic rescue inhaler would truly save me. After 2 weeks in Ireland, we joined his band in Italy. The fainting continued as we traveled in the van across Europe. I kept to myself when I could. I shrank down in the back of the van. I tried to make myself invisible. I tried to make myself useful. I sold merch, loaded gear, and fought against anxiety. I took care of the asthma attacks when I could. In Slovenia, after helping unload the van and while the band set up in the venue, I grabbed my bag and took off into the lamplit village. Brandon worried about me going alone, but I assured him I would be fine. I wanted a bed and a bath and an evening to myself. I needed a break from smoke-filled venues, rowdy crowds, and loud guitars. That night, I walked the cobblestone pathways along the river. Great stone statues of dragons and gargoyles looked over me as I made my way through the narrow roads. The village made me think of Dracula, specifically Gary Oldman in Bram Stoker's Dracula. I thought about sex and candles. I missed romance. I missed intimacy. I ate a salad and a slice of pizza by the water. I drank a glass of red wine. On my way to the inn, I stumbled upon a beautiful marble fountain in the middle of a dark square. Illuminated by a single street lamp, the fountain looked dark and ominous. I climbed the steps and sat on the ledge. Figures of sea maidens and merfolk glowed against the shadows. Sitting at the fountain, I let the fear of whatever was happening to me, the breathlessness, blackouts, loss of consciousness, find me. I sat by the fountain in the moonlit plaza and wept, alone and so far from home. Along with the fear, a certainty crept in. I was not where I needed to be, but wherever I was supposed to be was unknown. I need to take a sip. The tour went on. Fainting came in and out. I was juggling graduate work and selling the band's merch in loud DIY punk bars and venues. In Prague, I sat posted at the bar for hours, wrapping up an essay before a midnight deadline, then drank a glass of absinthe and walked the Charles Bridge. In England, I lost my spot in the van. The guys had invited a friend from Greece to join on the last leg of the tour, and that week, the week he was to join them, the van they were driving broke down. They got a new van, but it had one seat fewer. The plan was that I would do some traveling on my own, spend some time in Berlin and Hamburg before meeting back up with the band in London. I wasn't afraid of traveling alone, but I was afraid of losing my breath. I was afraid of fainting on my own. Still, I ventured into train stations and unknown cities independently. I eventually made it to King's Crossing in downtown London, the rendezvous spot, and waited and waited. The van never came. Finally, I got a message from Brandon explaining the guys wanted to stop in Camden Town to visit a famous record shop. He had no control over this, he explained. I had ridden a train and a bus from Bristol to make it to this meeting place. I was sick and I was terrified of fainting. A relentless cough had settled in my chest, and each day the rumbling wheeze in my lungs became worse. I just sighed and offered to wait it out. But when he said they were stuck in bad traffic, I knew they weren't going to pick me up. He sent me a pin of the warehouse they were playing in. I'd have to meet them at the venue. Kamsha was only 9 years old when she first encountered the flu that would nearly destroy the Chinook people. The disease spread quickly, and she watched one by one as her family succumbed. There is no known record of the years between the recorded smallpox epidemic and her marriage to Captain James Johnson. Years Kamsha spent alone, working, surviving, and growing into the young woman that would eventually marry one of the settlers whose arrival had led to her village's erasure. I learned the captain was a pirate and a bootlegger, selling distilled spirits to the few survivors of Kamsha's tribe. As I traveled alone, ill with bronchitis, I wondered if the captain ever cared for her in sickness. Did he bring her tea and warm broth? Did he bring her extra blankets? I changed trains 3 times and rode to the end of the line. Then I walked. I walked for hours, past giant housing complexes and shopping centers. The boroughs gave way to enormous warehouses and factories, and I worried about what might happen to me if I were to drop to the ground and faint out here alone. When I finally arrived at the collective warehouse space where the show was booked, a volunteer showed me to the kitchen. There, I made a cup of peppermint tea before collapsing onto a couch. That night, I curled up on a sofa during a rowdy after-party. I coughed my body into spasms and tried to sleep. I woke to see the silhouette of a man carefully arranging blankets over me. For the first time in days, I felt nurtured. I felt cared for. Groggy from cough syrup, I wanted to reach up, to pull him close and whisper, "I love you." But when I blinked his face into view, the man caring for me wasn't my husband. He was a complete stranger, the lead singer from one of the touring bands. Brandon was 2 rooms over, beer in hand, surrounded by bandmates and laughter. The stranger seemed to notice my confusion, asked if I needed anything, then smiled sympathetically before returning to the party. To this day, whenever his band comes on the overhead at a punk venue or a bar, I close my eyes in gratitude and remember the stranger's face. The tour continued on to Paris, where I left to stay with friends as the band drove on to Switzerland. My bronchitis turned to walking pneumonia, and when I returned back to the States, I was hospitalized and put on antibiotics. Thank you.
Sasha LaPointe. And let's hear some music. Sondra Segundo. I realized this might actually be Sondra's first time on the main stage. I didn't put the first timer thing in the, I should have done that on the slide, because Sondra has done our partnership with Seattle Arts and Lectures before, and is a regular contributor to style songwriting through youth literature education as well. So I am familiar with Sondra. But Sondra, a first timer on the main stage. Sondra Segundo is a multidisciplinary artist that comes from a long line of Haida Raven Clan matriarchs. She is Haida regalia maker, traditional and contemporary artist, author and illustrator of children's books, singer-songwriter, and keeper of ancestral songs. Practicing her cultural arts and singing in her Alaskan Haida dialect has opened doors for her to share her passion and healing with others. Please welcome Sondra Segundo.
How hatala is. Thank you, good people. Singyas lagang di talang. Good evening, my friends. It's an honor to be here. I really loved Sasha's book. I could really relate to it as an indigenous woman growing up in the city. I was born and raised here in the city. My grandparents came here during the 1956 Indian Relocation Act, one of the many acts that tried to erase my people, tried to divide and conquer us. And everything they did didn't work because I'm here right now, and so is Sasha, right? So I can relate. The part I related to the most, that really hit me the most, was when your ex-husband said, called your long line of beautiful indigenous women sick, because I've experienced that a lot, where people that are not indigenous are telling me who I am and what's wrong with me all the time. One time I went to a party, and this, the conversation went where he found out I was indigenous, Haida. Oh, I studied your people in college. I get that so much. And then he went on to tell me about myself, and then he got in a conversation with somebody else about my people, and I just was like, bye, and went and talked to somebody else, because I just don't want to waste my breath or my energy on that kind of stuff. But it's something that we've had to deal with a lot in our lives. And, I come from also a long line of strong indigenous women. And they taught me, what I've realized is that indigenous people, we've had to live in two worlds. We had to live in the world that we were forced to live in. We were, forced to speak English and forced to live in this world, but then we would go to this happy place with our elders where, they'd be singing songs and speaking in their language and just laughing like they never laugh when they speak in English. My grandmother's generation was the last one to go through the boarding school system. And what joy that we had in our lives during those times in those safe and sacred places were what made me who I am today, telling me the stories. They translated a lot of the songs they learned in the boarding schools into Haida, and they gifted me those songs, and so those songs became a time capsule for our unique dialect, Alaskan Haida. There's only 3 dialects that survived out of over 20, and so that them actually singing those songs to me and everybody just really kept our language alive, and that's why I am able to do all that I am today. And so I wrote this song. I wanted to bring a pan and a spoon because they weren't allowed to. All their drums were taken away, so they would teach me with a pan and a spoon. I thought that would really bring it home, but I was like, I'll try that another day. But that's how they taught me those songs, with a pan and a spoon, just drumming. And so that's where I go to, that safe place. And I wrote this song, and yeah, I want to dedicate it to all our ancestors and our elders and our matriarchs, and to Sasha for writing her beautiful book. Always a warrior, living in two worlds. We will be here forever. A familiar story lives in me, walking in the big city, walking in indigeneity. A dream come true. We are free. Resilient survivor, cancel curse from outside. Resilient survivor, ancestral love lives inside. Ooh. Always a warrior, living in two worlds. We will be here forever. We will be here forever. We will be here forever. Ooh, ooh.
Sondra Segundo. Can we keep that applause going for Cameron running sound in the back? Dealing with all these things coming and going. Jay's is a Hugo House tech, also helping us out. Dylan is running the live stream tonight. Put some thumbs and some hearts in the chat for Dylan. Jeff Larson in the back, changing up the slides. Always good. Michael Wallenfels did our season graphic design. Volunteers Emily and Jordan. Hugo House's house manager tonight is Caitlin. Volunteer Craig. The Bushwick production team is Jeff Larson, Drea Marilyn, Melissa Montalto, Emily Persia, Wes Waddell. Very special thanks to Shin Yu Pai for all you did to make tonight happen. 2022 has claimed one more of this evening's performers. I am so sorry Orange Goodman is not here, but we have one more song before we send you out into this cold, wet, but art-filled, worded, and musicked night. And it happens to be Bushwick's program manager, Drea Marilyn, who's been a real joy to work with this year. Drea Marilyn writes sad songs you can dance to. She is a singer-songwriter, composer, multi-instrumentalist, and educator who toured all over North America and Asia with her project Drea and the Marilyns. She also plays bass and synth in Sprig. She's joined us before for original music inspired by Crying in H Mart and The Picture of Dorian Gray. Here to send us out into the world is Drea Marilyn.
Yeah. Ooh, thanks, Wes. How's everyone doing tonight? So it's been like a really rough last 6 months. So when Wes and Jeff were like, "Hey, you want to do this show?" I'm like, "Yeah, I could use a nice light read to get me through this harrowing breakup and touring. What could go wrong?" Oh my God. Your book had me in tears. Every single chapter of it. I'm trying not to cry right now, because then I will look like animatronic because I'm wearing fake lashes. So I'm trying to keep my ish together. As Wes said in my bio, I write sad songs that you can dance to. My heart's very punk rock, but when it comes out, have you seen those like small children on YouTube like do taekwondo? And it's like, oh, they're trying really hard. That was me trying to write a punk song. So I'm as like cute as it would be, it won't get the point across. So I asked my friend Drew, and they play drums in one of the heavier bands I'm in. So I think Drew's gonna help make it real cool and punk. Your book, holy shit. It hits all the points. Like, I lost my grandmother in the last year, and I've been just like trying to reconnect. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to describe what I look like. I'm 5'7", I'm racially ambiguous, but I'll let you know what I am in a minute, so everyone calm down. It's fun, because like when I used to live in San Diego, everyone thought I was Hispanic, and I'm like, okay, and now here, people are like, where are you from? Like, California, but I'm Filipino. I was born here. I'm constantly trying to figure out more about my roots. It's just very new information to me that there's like, oh, there's indigenous Filipinos, there's people who don't have Spanish last names, like, tell me more. And like learning that like the region that my parents are from is called Pangasinan, where there was a lot of salt. My dad grew up in Nangkasalan, and kasal means marriage, so that's where a lot of marriages were. Tagalog is the national language, and that stands for Taga-Ilog, so by the water, and there's just something about being by the water that's so grounding and so centering, and there was a lot of themes of that in your book. And one of the other points, I could like ramble on of how your book was just oddly like, this is your autobiography, but I'm just like, what the hell? This is like oddly similar to the point where like your cis male ex's same exact name. Like at 33, it's like, when you're like 33, I had to move out. I'm like, that's what I'm doing this week. What the fuck? Yeah, let's hang out, please. And it's also like, if people want to help me move, that'd be great. That'd be really nice. And I think it's just the like, I don't think you mentioned this in your book, but this might be me projecting, but girl, you were doing like a shit ton of things. Like you're going to grad school, you're like trying to maintain these relationships, you're learning more about your culture, while like being, like having to deal with your illness and being sick. And it sounded like the people in your life, like your partners, just didn't quite understand the gravity of it. When, and can I spoil the book? Am I allowed to do that? Okay. In the chapter where you lost your daughter and your partner wasn't there despite you trying, I was like so ready to just like reverse search on Google and be like, all right, who is this? Who is this punk? And it's just very much like kind of just what I've been experiencing this year, and it's really like no one's fault. I'm gonna tell myself that because it's still really fresh. And just, I'm very much still in the grieving process of it. I'm still very much still thick in it, and this time of year has always been rough because just the amount of people I've lost, in addition with like dealing with like my own depression and my own anxiety, and no one really taking me seriously or not paying attention because it's like, well, she's busy doing things, she'll be fine. You know, also acknowledging your ancestors, and when my grandma passed away, it made it very clear that like, oh, she was suffering from depression, and I didn't realize that because I was taking care of her, and as a 14-year-old, it was like, it was kind of frustrating, like, why can't I go out with my friends? Why is my grandmother like this? And realizing like, oh my God, she was suffering with depression, and no one acknowledged it. They didn't know how. And then I think, you know, if you're, at least for me, it's just like seeing the terrors and horrors of colonization, and like how they've just had to like survive and get through. And I feel like in your book, and from my personal experience as well, it's like what a shit job, but it's our job to like break that. And even if we do have a supportive, support group of like friends and family, they have their own ish too, and it's like really up to us to like get better. And I'm sure I'll get better soon, I hope, because this is tiring. So the song's called Sick, featuring Drew Shreve on the drum pad. I'm gonna play this. It's a guitar. I'm over explaining things, but that's okay. I just wanted to give you a little taste of what it's like being a not white man in the music scene. Just, it's a little. All right. You ready? Can you hear us okay? All right. Oh, and then like here's a nerdy music fact. It's in 3/4, and 3/4 in a lot of video games is like the underwater like sequence, and like it has this like sway feel. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So just because that's on brand for me to talk about music theory. I'm gonna shut up now. You ready? Throw it in the saving flames. You can keep it all. Holy shit, I'm spirit sick, sleeping off the welts. Bundle me in promises you couldn't keep. We felt the need to feel safe. My namesake, for fuck's sake. I'm not well, a short breath, a regret, a reset. I'm not well to feel safe. My namesake, for fuck's sake. I'm not well, a short breath, a regret, a reset. I'm not well. Burned all the remnants of this empty home. Linoleum on her epitaph left me all alone. Holy shit, I'm spirit sick, drifting off to sleep. Cut the cloth that called to me, a bond we couldn't keep. To feel safe, my namesake, for fuck's sake. I'm not well, a short breath, the regret, the reset. I'm not well to feel safe, my namesake, for fuck's sake. I'm not well, a short breath, the regret, a reset. I'm not well. She's standing by the water. She's holding all the pills. Like that was like really heavy, and now it's like, by the way, my next show is January 14 at Substation. It would feel really cheap to say that. Wow, that's why it stopped working.
Oh, that's
It's
pretty
rock and
punk
roll.
rock. Good work. There, Drea Marilyn. All right. And keep that going for all of tonight's authors and musicians: Molly Wizenberg, Elisheba Johnson and Rachel Kessler, Sasha LaPointe. Music from Alex Guy, the Go Janes, Marielle and Chris C.D. Littlefield, Shaun Crawford, Reggie Garrett, Sondra Segundo, and Drea Marilyn. Our full spectrum season will roll along with original music inspired by Jacqueline Woodson's Red at the Bone, January 14th at Town Hall. Jeff likes the slow fade. And then we'll be right back here at Hugo House on February 11th for original music inspired by the works of Margaret Wise Brown. Thanks for being here. Thanks for reading. Thanks for singing. Get home safe. Be well.